This episode of Just the Tip-Sters is sponsored by Clean Spa Bath and Body. That's clean with a K. Cleanspa.com. Clean Spa. Prepare to smell delicious.
From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's Just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Live long and prosper.
If you've got a tip for Melissa, a tall tale that may actually be true, a fragment of a clue that might break a case wide open, how to avoid your weird Aunt Stella's Frito raisin pudding dessert without her getting all Nurse Ratched on you. Anything, tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host. The Halloween calendars have just started to arrive, and she's already ordered enough stuff for the next 3 years. Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. Frito raisin souffle or casserole.
Frito raisin pudding dessert.
Pudding.
Yeah.
I'm just more worried about you as time goes on.
Well, I guess you never had a weird Aunt Stella.
No.
Well, neither did I. But
yeah, I know.
But we all know weird Aunt Stella's.
No one makes Frito raisin pudding, darling. It doesn't happen. No one.
I bet you. Okay, listeners, you tipsters out there, I want to hear what weird relative of yours has the worst dessert that nobody would ever eat. Okay. Send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com or leave a message at 832-TIPSTER.
Don't. Please don't.
We want to know.
No. Not we, Kemosabe. You might want to know. Me no want to know-y. No.
Well, not that I didn't say I wanted to know. But,
okay.
Well, I did say I wanted to know.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
So, oh my God. So this is the third installment of Survivor Month, which also happens to be the month of the birth of our Lord and Savior, Mark Humphreys. So thank you for sharing your birth month with Survivor Month, which it also happens to be the birth month of Tipster Bridget, who is the impetus for this entire month, discussing what would happen during an attack and how to survive it. So I just loved the whole idea. And I think if most listeners, tipsters, think about their lives, they know someone who is really a true survivor. It could be someone who has survived cancer or an illness that, could have taken the life of someone else, but they survived. We here at Just the Tipsters know tipster Nicole, who survived the Route 66 shooting in Las Vegas. On a small scale, I survived a gas explosion in 1980 of my high school where one beautiful soul was taken and 30 people were injured, mostly firefighters, because there was a second explosion. It was in the boiler room, which is next to the art room. And
that's got to be tough when you're that age.
Well, yes, and it's not like, you want one person to live over others, but Robert Williams was this, boy, oh boy, what a unique kid. He drove a purple dune buggy in the winter, and he would sometimes stop at different friends' houses to warm up before driving all the way home.
Sounds like my kind of guy.
He was amazing, and he was a great artist. He was a fantastic uber fan of Elvis. How great their art was played at his memorial, which was packed on a beautiful sunny October day. And I remember being so upset. When someone that you care about passes away, you think the sun shouldn't shine anymore. And, I'm 15, 16, something like that. 15, not even 16 yet. And because my mom had to drive me to the memorial. And you're thinking, you're shaking, I'm shaking my fist at the heavens like, God, why are you making it a beautiful sunny October Indian summer day when Robert Williams was just killed by a concrete wall of a school that collapsed on him and he couldn't get out? So it was a very a very bizarre, accident. And those of us that did survive, I think we probably all still carry a little bit of survivor's guilt. I know I do. I mean, I would not have been in the art room. My friend Brian was there, not far from Robert apparently, and he had soot on him when he got out. It just is, sometimes you don't know how these things happen, why they happen, but they do happen. And, maybe I'm skewed in my thinking, but I also feel it's important for those of us that are still here to tell the tale of what happened, to keep the stories alive of those who aren't here to tell us their stories. It's, it can be daunting. That was why I thought, I think everyone needs a break. I think we all need a break right now. And a series of stories of survivors is hopefully only a helpful good thing. I can tell you that some of these stories are more harrowing than those stories of those who have not survived because of the awful circumstances. But there's something magical and life-affirming to those that have gone through something so terrible and still make it. And not only make it, not only survive in the, quote-unquote definition of the word, but thrive. And maybe not in an easy way. It may be a very difficult journey, but they still show us the best of humanity when maybe they've experienced the worst of humanity in one way or another. But they show us that, you can, if you make it, I maybe I'm becoming too old and spiritual, but if you make it, I think, I'm not saying you have to do something huge to change the world, but I am saying you made it for a reason. You can discount that and say, luck of the draw, I don't care. In my mind, you've made it because you're supposed to still be here. And surviving is a gift, even if it's an experience that will absolutely change you, make you a different person. Change the way you think about people, maybe. But the real you is inherently in there. The person that you were is still in there. It may be a different person than you ever thought it would be. It may change the way you think about everything. But you're still in there. You're still there. And this is one of the toughest stories I've ever heard, and still one of my favorite stories because of how she came out of it, and not in an easy way. It wasn't easy, but her story is a beautiful story, eventually a beautiful story. And I know this is an odd transition, but another beautiful story to me is our sponsor, Jennifer Hardaway, who has taken many things and turned them into successes, not necessarily tragedies. It's not like she has survived something, but she has done something with her life that is unique and beautiful. And that's why we're really honored that she's our sponsor. And as you know, this episode is sponsored by Clean Spa Bath & Body by Jennifer Hardaway. And if you're searching for the perfect gift, everyone loves the selection of Clean Spa's moisturizers, cleanses, perfumes, massage oils, because they come in so many scents and so many different products. You're absolutely going to find something that you love. It can be beautifully gift wrapped and shipped to somebody special for a birthday, an anniversary, a special occasion, a wedding, or honestly, just because. I've never purchased any Clean Spa products for a special occasion, but I've purchased many of them just because I want my friends to know what these products are like and enjoy the quality. And then if they would like to order more, they know where they can get these fantastic things. Clean Spa products are made with healthy, naturally inspired ingredients and available in dozens of delicious fragrances. So check out cleanspa.com today. Find just the right gift for just the right person in your life. And make sure to enter promo code Tip-Sters at the checkout to get 15% off your total order. And as always, there's free shipping on any order of $85 or more. And remember, that's clean with a K, cleanspa.com. Clean Spa, prepare to smell delicious. We love our tipsters, and we know that it isn't always financially feasible to join the Patreon page. We are grateful for those who have, but we would also be very grateful if you could take the time to rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. Apple Podcasts has now actually started thank goodness, the correct category of true crime. True crime podcasts used to be under, a lot of them under society and culture, some of them under news, some of them under history, personal journals. And it would be an odd thing to find a true crime podcast. You had to know where to look. So now you can find them all under the heading of true crime. If you would take the time to rate, and if you have even more time, review our podcast if you like it. And if you don't like it, then just forget it. But if you do, please consider doing that. It really does help people find us if we are on a list where we get rates and reviews. It's really helpful. So this episode, the third installment of Survivor Month, is the story of Mary Vincent, which has been covered a lot of places, many other podcasts, an episode of I Survived, People Magazine, several books have been written about Mary's story, and she is amazing, and that is why it came up in conversation with Tipster Bridget, because of what she has done with what happened to her, with her life. It's a really remarkable story. I will just be honest, it's rough. It's really rough to hear what happened to her, but I'm hoping you'll come away with what I came away with, a appreciation for life, an appreciation for a 15-year-old girl who is a bigger badass than a shitbag who tries to end her. It's really, boy, she is something else. So in September of 1978, 15-year-old Mary Vincent is living in Las Vegas. She is beautiful. She's a, average student. She has what she hopes is a promising career in dance. She really loved to dance. But she was having such trouble at home. And she wasn't doing anything really bad when you think about it. I mean, it's 1978. And things like cutting school, maybe a little, I don't know, maybe a little tougher. It was, I graduated high school in the 80s. And I never cut school, but because I'm a, do-gooder, and just was like, why would you do that? Like, it would never dawn on me. The closest I came to that was once a year, my mom would take me out of school for one day and called it a mental health day. And I actually think, looking back, that it was so that she could take a day off work. And we would take a day off together during the week and go have lunch somewhere, maybe go see a movie, go shopping at the, once and future Florence Mall, y'all. And, I just didn't get why you would want to skip school. I never understood that. So
you are such a goody two-shoes.
I know, it's really sad. I'm such a rule follower. It's really sick and sad. But so she would occasionally skip school. She did, this terrible thing of wearing makeup, I guess maybe to her parents or family. She was one of 7 kids, and her parents were having trouble already. They were, separating, and they were going to get divorced. And she was just like, I need a break. And I can't think of any 15-year-old who doesn't occasionally need a break. I can't think of any 50-year-old who doesn't occasionally need a break. But, her break turned out to be a nightmare. She was described as being really, really naive and just kind of always looking for a way to rebel. I think maybe to get attention, large family, troubled parents. So she decides she's going to hitchhike from Las Vegas to her grandfather's house in Corona, California. So she stands on the side of the road with a group of people who want to hitchhike to California from Nevada. And a van a blue van pulls over, and the man driving offers a ride only to Mary. Now, the other people in the group are like, no, we don't want her to go by herself, and you take all of us or none of us. And later on, Mary, like on the television show I Survived, she said, you know what, I just was tired, and I needed to get away, and I was just tired. So she didn't really, she's a smart girl, but her alarm bells weren't really ringing at this point. And I think, here I am playing armchair psychologist, but wanting to hitchhike to your grandfather's house, and the other place you found solace was your uncle's house, and I think it's called Soquel, California. It's
Soquel.
Soquel. Thank you, producer Mark. Soquel. I don't want tipster Kathleen to yell at me because I say Tulare.
No, Soquel's on.
No, I say Tulare.
Soquel's near Santa Cruz.
Yeah,
Santa Cruz Mountains.
exactly. They say it's about 75 miles south of San Francisco. So the only two places she would go, to rest or for solace would be her grandfather and her uncle. So I think she had good relationships with older men, and Lawrence Singleton looked grandfatherly. He had a beer belly. He was older. I think she didn't sense a problem with him, which is, probably problem number one. And it's still 1978. And hitchhiking was, I think it had probably, calmed down some from the 60s and 70s for sure. But it was still prevalent. It was still prevalent in the 70s. And I get it, this is the end of the 70s, but it was still prevalent. So Lawrence Singleton picks her up and says, I'm going to Reno, but I'll take you to the 5 freeway. And she's like, okay. And he says, but what we have to do first is stop by my house in San Francisco and pick up some laundry. She was like, fine, that's fine. They go to San Francisco. She goes in to his house and helps him carry his laundry to his van. She still isn't picking up any bad vibes at this point. She's helping him carry fucking laundry to his van. She starts to light a cigarette, and something tickled her nose and she sneezed. And before she knows what happens, he has his hand on the back of her neck and he's pulling her toward him in an attempt to kiss her. But she's like, what are you doing? And he said, I need to see if you're sick.
What?
But sneezing like she had a cold.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so he has pulled her to him, and she's like, look, I'm not, now my hackles are up, and now I'm wondering what is happening here. She falls asleep and wakes up, and he's, touching her, not inappropriately yet, but she feels around in the back of the van, and she pulls out a surveyor's stick. And she's like, look, I don't know who you are or care who you are, but I can take care of myself. So don't try it. And she said he was a perfect gentleman the rest of the drive until they got to Del Puerto Canyon, which is, south of Santa Cruz. And he says he has to go to the bathroom and he cannot wait till the next rest stop. And she's like, all right, fine, I'll just take this opportunity. I'll go to the bathroom too. So they get out of the van. He goes one way to go to the bathroom. She goes to the other, and she relieves herself. And then she notices that her tennis shoe is untied. And she bends over to tie her tennis shoe, and she feels a blow to the back of her head. He has hit her with a hammer twice. And she starts to yell, and he says, if you scream, I'll kill you. And he drags her body back to his van and shoves her in the back, and she's nauseous and dizzy. And he ties her hands behind her back, and he rapes her and sodomizes her.
Oh, God. Jesus.
So after the first assault, he drives the van. By the way, he is wearing no clothing off the side of the road. Just gets in his van in the middle of the day, drives the van down into the canyon, and says, you need to drink some of this. Now, he's such an alcoholic that he keeps his really hard liquor in a milk carton. So he cuts the bindings off of her hands and forces her to drink this really hard liquor.
Oh, man. Weird.
It gets more weird. And he says, I'll set you free if you, just cooperate. So in the canyon, he assaults her a few more times. He tries to force his penis into her mouth, and when that doesn't work, then he assaults her again. And he makes her take, a few more swigs, and she passes out. But it's not long, and she wakes up, and he's standing over her, and he says, lie on the ground. And she's naked. While she was passed out, he had gone back to his van and retrieved a hatchet. She's numbed somewhat because of the alcohol, but she's still conscious of everything that's going to happen to her. And he cuts off both of her arms at the elbow.
Oh, God.
It takes 3 whacks to cut off her right arm. And then he pushes her body down into the canyon to make sure she's dead. He walks down to the canyon, still naked, and pushes her body into a large drainage pipe and said, hey, you wanted to be free? Now you're free.
Oh. Okay.
She passed. You got to hold on, producer Mark, because it doesn't get prettier. It doesn't get prettier for a little bit of a ride here. She comes to and realizes she's in really bad need of help. She's naked and her arms have been cut off. She's 15. She realizes the blood is going to drain from her if she doesn't do something. And she stuffs the wounds with dirt and holds her bloody stumps over her head so that the blood does not drain out of her. And
Incredible.
She walks 3 miles to the freeway, to the 5 freeway, which is like the Autobahn. And the first car that slows down sees her and pulls off. She doesn't remember if it's like they were, oh my God, is this a joke? Are you trying to trap us? But the next car, it's now getting sunset. The next car that pulls over, it's 2 women. The story was originally told that it was a honeymooning couple, but it wasn't. It was 2 women. And the only reason they found her is because they were lost.
Oh.
So you're telling me there's nobody up there saying...
How can you say that?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Saying, we got to save this one. Whatever, she's working to save herself, we got to save this one. So they happen to have towels in their car. They wrapped her arms in towels, and the closest place they could take her was an airport that had a phone. This is 1978, by the way. Again, 15-year-old girl. They get her the medical attention that she needs. They take her to the hospital. And she's so cogent, even after all of this. She's really good at describing him, her assailant. And the drawing is so good. In 1978, an artist is able to take what Mary Vincent, who is, extraordinarily injured, able to take her description and come up with such a sketch that Larry Singleton's neighbor in San Francisco recognizes him and turns his fucking ass in.
Oh, my God.
So he's arrested like 3 days after the attack, which is a blessing. Now I'm going to take a small detour and say that next week's episode is a unsolved case that I've been fascinated by for decades. And ironically, one of the people that was a suspect for a while, I think I can talk about him now because I know he's passed away. His first name is also Lawrence. It's not Singleton. And he's somewhat of a cult actor, and we will discuss that next week. But he looks very much like Lawrence Singleton. Now, if you see pictures of Lawrence Singleton, you know that the facial structure looks very different when you lose your teeth. So he either had false teeth as he got older, or they took his false teeth from him in jail. But he looks like Popeye. He has one eye closed and a very large underjaw and large flappy lips because I think he is missing his teeth. And he is really the definition of human garbage. Personally, he's from Florida, where all bad things go to happen. He was married twice, has a daughter, told Mary Vincent while raping and sodomizing her, "I have a daughter about your age." Yeah.
Just hear this stuff.
If you look in the dictionary, human garbage, picture next to it, Lawrence Singleton. And wait, it gets worse, producer Mark. I'm telling you, hold your indignation. It gets a lot worse. A lot worse. The really only beautiful gem out of this huge pile of excrement is Mary Vincent and what she's done. That's why I even hate to talk about him. And one of the things she did that was so beautiful is she refused to name him, call him by his name. She would just refer to him as my attacker. She didn't even want to
Good for her.
Yeah. I mean, she is spectacular. He just didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know what he was doing when he
didn't know who he was up
who
against.
he was up against. That's it. So 6 months later, she has to face her attacker in court. And she, the entire time he is waiting for his trial, he's like, she's a prostitute. He called her a $10 a night whore. He said she attacked him and that he...
Oh, just lovely.
Yeah.
Just fucking awesome.
He said she threatened him and that she would call the cops and say he raped her, that she had sex with two leather-bound, bikers, and then said, "Okay, it's your turn. Do you want to go?" And then said, "If you don't give me all your money, I will tell them you raped me." So she attempted to attack him. So he, all of this shit. So she has her new prosthetic arms. And she's not really liking them. We're still talking about the late 70s where I'm sure prostheses have come a long way, but still, it's not you're 15 and it's not your arms. It's what a horrible person has done to you. So here's where the legal system really, really messed up. Because she didn't die. The maximum he could be given was 14 years.
Oh, you're kidding.
I'm not. So he's charged with kidnapping, mayhem, attempted murder, forcible rape and sodomy, forced oral copulation. And he is like, "I don't know what you're talking about. This didn't happen. I tried to defend myself against this crazy woman. And of course I had to do something drastic to get her to not attack me."
Okay, breathe.
Right. So he is considered a model prisoner. And his 14-year sentence ends after 8 years and 4 months.
Jeez.
He gets out for good behavior. And then he tries to sue Mary Vincent by saying he is a victim.
Oh, that is just...
He tries to sue her. Now, the case is obviously thrown out of court. And the judge said, "If I had the power, I would have sent you to prison for the rest of your natural life."
Well, good for the judge, but
right.
He's still fucking out.
Yeah. So... in the meantime, Mary, young teenage girl's growing up. She's still very rebellious. She tries to go back home, and her parents eventually split. Her father ends up moving to Alaska, and her mother stays in Las Vegas. And the 7 siblings, end up kind of scattered all around Nevada. It's not a happy home for her to go back to after one of the worst experiences any of us could ever imagine. She does eventually graduate from high school. She hates going to a psychiatrist, even though she has obviously PTSD, nightmares. She develops an eating disorder and she gets down to 98 pounds. She hated the school she had to go to because it was for handicapped people. And I don't blame her for any of the things that she feels. Not one iota of what she feels do I blame her. She, can't really make a living when she gets out of high school. She, tries several jobs, but it's hard to hold down a job and keep steady employment. Her prosthetics keep breaking and she can't afford to get them fixed. So she files for bankruptcy and she, lives off of welfare. And I don't blame her. She marries a man when she's 19, but it only lasts 3 years. I'm actually surprised it lasted that long. And her life is kind of going, not well. And she meets a man named Tom. He's an investigator in the prosecutor's office, and they cross paths when she's in the district attorney's office. Now, Tom becomes her second husband, and he is some sort of angel that obviously she was meant to meet, and he was meant to meet her. He's her number one supporter. He becomes her bodyguard. He encourages her to share her story. He's very big into, he's an advocate for victims' rights working for the prosecutor's office. And he books speaking engagements for her. And unfortunately, one of them was at a high school. It was one of her first speaking engagements at a high school. And she's trying to share with young people, don't hitchhike. Basically, just the dangers of hitchhiking.
Right.
And when she's telling her story, an asshole in the back of the auditorium says, "You got what you deserved."
Okay, that's what some kid, right?
Yep. A kid said, "You got what you deserved." And she refused to ever do a speaking engagement at a high school again. And I understand that. It's the people who need to hear it the most. And I totally get why she doesn't want to do it that anymore. I totally get that.
Yeah, it's hard to blame her. It really is.
It absolutely is. She still continues to do speaking engagements, but I understand why. High school kids can go fuck off. That's just, you don't, how do you heckle a victim who's done, anyway. I hope that kid had some second thoughts in his life about what he did.
Yeah, hopefully somewhere down the line, as he got older, at some point he realized.
We can hope.
My God.
So Mary and Tom work really hard to build a life together. And it is, honestly, it's a happy life. And Tom works hard to make sure that it's a healthy life for he and Mary. They get married in 1999 in a small ceremony. And Mary can't wear a wedding ring because she can't wear a wedding ring. Tom buys her a diamond ring that she can wear on a necklace around her neck. So she has a wedding ring. And sometimes those symbols are important. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things in the story. They end up having 2 sons. She attends the University of Nevada, and she's, a victim's advocate. And a really odd thing happens. She becomes a good artist with no hands.
Wow.
She has never been really interested in art. And she said she woke up one day and thought, I'm going to try this. And it, in her words, it inspired her and gave her self-esteem. And she became a pretty popular artist, and not just, let's buy a painting by this girl because she doesn't have her arms and she's trying to sell her art. Her art actually becomes valuable, and some of her paintings are, valued at up to like $2,000.
Wow.
She opens an art studio and helps other people, become artists with hands or without hands. I mean, she's kind of amazing. Lord Singleton gets out, and they can't find a halfway house to put him in because everyone knows the story and everyone hates him. And maybe even more than child molesters. I don't know.
You mean his life may have been at danger, at risk?
Well,
that's a shame.
I will be honest. I have never heard of this before, but they can't find a halfway house to put him in. So they set up a trailer on the grounds of San Quentin.
Oh, my God.
A trailer on the grounds of San Quentin to house him. He is under constant surveillance by the guards. He has a curfew, and he has to go to mandatory AA meetings. So he's in prison, really, but he's not in prison, if that makes sense.
During the day, he can get out and go shopping and shit?
Right. Yeah, he's under, under the microscope. But he, can't really do a lot because he can't really, they're watching him take a shit and hopefully combing through it for corn. He doesn't deserve a trailer on the grounds of San Quentin. He deserves a trailer in between the coast and Alcatraz underwater, but they actually set him up one on the grounds of San Quentin.
Well, it's still not fair, but it's better than having him out in, at a halfway house somewhere.
Sort of. Well, no one would take him. They tried 17 different places to place him, and no one would take him.
Right, because they knew that he'd end up dead within, 3 days.
Well, no. It gets worse. So, hold on. So he is so upset with his living conditions that once he is released from parole, he goes back to Florida, again, where all bad things go to happen. So he can't even stay out of trouble. He's, arrested twice more. Once he steals a $10 disposable camera. This is all in Florida. And he serves 60 days. And then he steals a $3 hat from a drugstore and he gets 2 years. He tried to kill himself a couple times. He was put in the psych ward, but obviously he didn't kill himself. So he's in Florida, and a man calls the police after he witnesses a completely naked man, through a window, bludgeoning what he thinks is bludgeoning a bloody, limp woman. He can see through the window, and he says, "I could hear her bones crushing like chicken bones breaking." Oh, boy. The police arrive quickly, and they discover a completely naked Lawrence Singleton at the home. He's covered in blood, and there's a dead sex worker on the couch. Ugh. Roxanne Hayes was a 31-year-old mother of 3, and she was working as a sex worker to support her family. Lawrence Singleton picked her up and agreed on $20 for a date, and once they got back to his house, he stabbed her multiple times with a boning knife.
Okay.
So this is what happens when you get released on parole. Now, Mary Vincent does not have to go to Florida, but she insists on going to Florida and speaking at his trial. She says, "I was raped. I had my arms cut off. He used a hatchet and he left me to die." And she would, instead of at the first trial when she wouldn't look at him, she looked directly at him at this trial for Roxanne Hayes and points at her with her prosthetic hook. Points at her. Now, at one point...
Points at him, you mean?
I'm sorry, points at him. Thank you, yes. Points at Lawrence Singleton with her hook. "This is what he did to me. I want you to see what he did to me." And from all accounts, the courtroom is silent. At one point, she's sitting, at the prosecutor's table, and they pick him up to take him out of the room, and he walks by and bends down and whispers something to her, and her face turns pale, but she refuses to acknowledge him. And what he apparently said to her was, "If it's the last thing I'll do, I'll finish you."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, of course he did.
Right. So if, I don't want to be rude, but if he had been held for attempted murder longer than 8 years and 4 months, for rape, for the list of things that he did, Roxanne Hayes would still be alive. We can hope. We can hope that she would still be alive. It's a difficult, awful thing when you're trying to support your family as a sex worker. But obviously, you don't always get murdered. And I would hope that she would not have had, maybe something would have changed in her life. She was beautiful too. I don't want to say he has a type, but Roxanne Hayes looks like Mary Vincent. Beautiful, brown, wavy hair. I mean, they looked exactly alike. They were both really gorgeous. So he, of course, is sentenced to death, and he's, such a, proactive man. He can't wait that long, so he dies of cancer in 2001. Right. So the thing is, out of this, I swear, comes something good. And there, Mary Vincent has worked hard to enact legislation that prevents early release for offenders who've committed a crime where torture is used. And it's called Singleton's Bill. So you get a 25 to life sentence as opposed to 14 years and you get out in 8. Singleton's Bill, at least something good came out of this horrible, awful person's, this garbage human's actions. Now you can't attack someone and they end up living, no matter how hard you try to make them not living. If they live, you're gonna be in. If you torture them in any way, you're gonna be treated like a murderer, which is the only way in my mind it should be.
Right, and so that right there is at least one reason why she was supposed to survive.
Absolutely. That's what I want you to remember. I want you to remember a 15-year-old girl who had such a strong will to live that she shoved dirt into the open wounds that were once her arms. And if anyone deserves a team, it's Mary Vincent. And more cowbell.
And remember, if you'd like to become a patron of the podcast, go to patreon.com/justthetipsters. Give us a call at 832-TIPSTER. Send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com.